The parental rights bill is set to go into law this week in Indiana. I sat down with the author of the bill, State Senator Liz Brown, to learn more. Senator Brown, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's an important discussion.
Absolutely. Okay, first, what was it that you were seeing in our state that told you there was a need for a parental rights bill?
So I've been the chair of the judiciary for a few years, and we were having more and more issues and problems with, for example, DCS, Department of Child Services. And when they would take over a child and remove the child from the house, and what rights did the parents have in that decision, and also what was the premise, the reason to take that child. And what we were finding more and more is that there's no abuse, that sometimes caseworkers were biased, and sometimes caseworkers decided they didn't like the way that parents decided to raise their child, homeschool them in certain religions, etc. And so unfortunately, this was the second year that I brought the bill. Couldn't get it to pass last year, but what we have found is this is just sort of right-sizing things. Parents always thought they had rights to raise their children as they thought was best, and this just now, we double down as a state and make sure that they do have the right to raise their children as they think is best.
There are critics to this bill, as I've learned covering the news for more than a decade. There's always critics to every bill. One of the critics, I have a quote here from a critic of this bill that says, quote, "This bill doesn't secure parental rights. It just tells the government exactly what it has to do to restrict them. It doesn't tell them no, it just tells them how."
So there was a lot of discussion about that as it went through my committee, went through the Senate as a whole, and over to the House. But what people need to understand is right now, I mean, I can understand anyone saying the government is giving me these rights. No, the government should never give parents rights over how to raise their child. But the problem is, how do we protect families from the government? So what we did is we used the highest language that we could use. So the same constitutional language, a compelling interest by the government, and it cannot substantially burden. That type of language is used for our most fundamental constitutional rights. Our freedom of religion, our freedom of Second Amendment freedoms, our freedom against search and seizure, etc., right? That's the same language. To a bystander, it sounds like we're giving the government a way in, but the hardest and the highest level that we could set to protect families from the government is the same language we all live under that protects our constitutional rights from the government as well. So I'd have to disagree. What we've said that you have to have a compelling reason to interfere in a family and to interfere with the parents' rights. And I'll give you two very obvious examples because I was involved with both those bills. For example, if your child is a minor, we do not allow the parent, even if they want to, do transgender affirming surgery on their child. Now, you may as a parent say that's my right to do that. That's where the state of Indiana said we have a compelling right. We're not going to let you do that to your child when they're a minor. So those are examples, and there's other kinds of surgeries too, where people have female genital mutilation. We don't let you do that. We've banned both of those in the state of Indiana. Not every state has. So I would say what we're starting with is parents have the rights. We're going to start with them. And only in really rare instances, like the two I mentioned, would the state step in and say, no, you can't do that to your child.
You've mentioned that this bill is a good first step, but it's not perfect. What is it that you hope to add, possibly with future legislation?
Well, I think what we need to make sure is that the agencies that we're trying to direct this to, I think under this administration, the new director, Adam Krupp, is doing a great job. He understands this. We had a lot of conversations with him about this bill as it was moving through, because he came in new as the bill was moving through the legislature. So it's a matter of getting it down to the people who are actually employed in these agencies, right? It's making sure that schools and school counselors understand. If the child has an issue and the parent says, I'm opting out of sex ed, you need to tell me when you're counseling my child. They need to understand that's the law and you have to do that. So hopefully we don't have to impose any penalties or punishments. We didn't really get much pushback from agencies and schools. They understood and they want to work with families, right? Everybody wants the best interest of the child. It's just how we go about it.
State Senator Liz Brown, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.